Hello everyone and welcome back to Growing with TJ. Today I want to talk to you guys about up potting or potting up your seedlings. You can see here I have my pepper seedlings that were started on 2/14, and most of them have about at least 2 sets of true leaves, or some of them even have 3. And around that time is when I would like to up pot if I started them in a small cell container. You can see here this is a 6 cell, rather small container. Now the roots are starting to get to the point where they are going to run out of soil, and they need to have a bigger container or pot so the roots can continue to grow and continue to be a healthy plant. Now I've said in the past I do not prefer to up pot if I don't have to, but in this case I had a bunch of lettuce back here, onions, all different kinds of cool crops, and I didn't really have space to have a couple flats of peppers. So that is why I chose to start these in the 6 cell, and now I'm at the point where I need to up pot. And simply a quick definition of potting up or up potting, whatever you want to call it, I like to call it potting up, is you're going to take these seedlings out of the small cell that they're in right now, and you're going to put them into a larger container. This is going to give the root system a lot more space, and it will continue to grow and be a healthy plant, and they won't get root bound. You know, if I kept them in these small 6 cell containers, it's going to be detrimental to the plants. You know, they're not going to be able to grow. The root system is going to get all tangled up, and what they call is root bound. They'll get root bound, and they will no longer be a healthy plant. So this is a step, if you start in these smaller cells, that you must do. You have to up pot if they're going to be in the small cell here. You know, by the time I get ready to plant these out, these guys will not be looking healthy, and they will end up, you know, being a failure of a plant. And it is really just hurting the plant itself if you skip this step of up potting. All right, so you guys can see here that most of these pepper seedlings have about 2 to 3 sets of true leaves. And around that time is when I would like to pot them up to a larger cell container. You can see if I hold this steady here, this is not a true leaf. This is a leaf that emerges when it sprouts up initially from the seed. So that does not count as a true leaf. But these bigger leaves in here in the center are the true leaves. So if they have 2 to 3 true leaves, that is a good indication that they are ready to be potted up. Another thing I like to do is pop, you know, the cell out carefully, and you can look at the root system and you can see, okay, they look like they are running out of room and they should be put in a larger container. So this is a 6 cell from Epic Gardening, and I really like these cells. Very hard plastic. They're going to last you a lifetime. They also have holes here on the bottom, which makes it easy to punch out your seedling when you're transplanting or up potting. And the big thing I like is the slits in the side here. You can see how the roots are starting to grow out of these slits. And this is called air pruning. And it's very good for your plant to air prune. You know, they're not going to get all coiled up as much down here in the bottom, and they can grow out the slits. And that's just going to make for a healthier plant. As you can see, the roots coming out like this. So very good 6 cell from Epic Gardening. I really like these, and air pruning is definitely something you should look for, and it is beneficial to your pepper plant or any plant for that matter. All right, let me show you here quickly how I like to pot up my pepper plants, eggplant, whatever the case may be. I got some eggplants in here too. I treat peppers and eggplant pretty much the same. I feel like they both grow rather slowly, so I plant them at the same time. So obviously you want to have your soil here, and you want to pre-moisten it. If you're using seed starting mix to start off your seeds, I would suggest when you go to pot them up that you're going to use some type of potting mix. It's just going to have a little bit more nutrients for your seedling, and the seed starting mix doesn't really have that. So I do still sift through this, get out any of the big pieces, because that's not really going to help you in this case. Now I got my bigger container here. This is a 2-inch cell. This is a nice quality container. I just like to use them since they will last a little bit longer. They got some cheap ones here, but you know, after a year or two, they do start to crack and you got to replace them. So what I do is get a little of my soil, put it in there. I do about an inch, inch and a half, something like that. I'll take it, smack it on the ground, kind of get the soil down to the very bottom of the cell. And of course, you want to make sure you have your tags. This is a time where you can get your plants mixed up. So you definitely want to have your tags and make sure you're properly putting them in to the correct plant. You know, this is one of the times where I will forget or misplace a tag and then put it in and it's the wrong plant. And when I get in the garden, I want to make sure I know exactly what plant I am putting into the ground. So let's take this red ember pepper that I was showing you earlier. And I want to plant this right at the root ball. You know, I don't want to be planting it too high with peppers. Some say they could grow roots higher up here, like tomatoes. For me, I don't necessarily know if that's true, so I just want to stay right with the level of the soil that I already have. So I'll take it, gentle. You can see some of the soil's coming out, but I'll put it in here just like that. And you see it's about right at the top of the cell. And then you just simply got to fill in around it. Get a little bit in here, and then it will start sitting by itself, just like that. And just get in there, work its soil down a little bit. And you're just going to fill up around your pepper plant. It's really not a hard process to do. It does take a little bit of time. That is one of the reasons why I like to skip this process if I can. But either way, if you have to pot up, you can, and it's not a challenging thing to do, but like I said, it does take some time. So there you go, I have it in. I like to little pat it down a little bit. You can see the pepper sitting there just fine. Take your tag, red ember, and into the container. And there you go. That's all it takes right there. And that is a potted up pepper plant. One thing I will do, I will give it a little bit of water, not too much, just to help it get used to its new home. After the initial transplant shock is wearing down, I then will give it a little water-soluble fertilizer. So after it has a day or two in this container, a little water-soluble fertilizer will go a long way for your pepper plant. There you have it. All right, guys, so I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer to show you how I do this process of potting up. Right here, I have a gaudy eggplant, I believe is how you say it. So you get your soil into your container, just like that. Again, I like to pound it down a little bit, push down a little bit, and then you can grab your seedling that you're going to be up potting. There you have it, nice root system. And I will put it into my container just like that. Then start filling around the side. And like I said, once you get a little bit of soil in there, it's going to sit nice for you. You can put it down and have both hands. So just work it on the side, trying to get the seedling to be secured in there and sitting straight how you want it. And just slowly fill it in. I like to try and make it pretty even though it's not that important, just kind of how I am. There you go. Now you got your eggplant in this case up potted. Put in your tag. And that's all it takes, really. It's not a hard process. It just takes a little bit of time. All right, so there you have it. I just potted up all these pepper and eggplants, and they're looking really good. One thing I want to mention is do not get discouraged if you're looking at your pepper seedling and wondering why it is growing so slow. Peppers tend to take a long time to get growing and get started. They're going to stay in a small stage for longer than you expect or want them to, but over time they will pick up their pace and start looking more like a pepper plant. These guys right here planted on 2-4, so they're planted maybe 2 weeks before 10 days or so. These guys are, and you can see this one has 4 true leaves on it and it's looking very good. I mean, the difference is pretty noticeable. And these guys just started growing more rapidly in the past, week. So it takes some time. You just have some patience, take care of them, and they will grow at the rate you want them to grow. That's why I suggest getting them started way early, 8 to 10 weeks before you plan to put them out in the ground, and you'll have enough time to get a nice healthy pepper plant that you are feeling comfortable with and to put it in the ground and have a good success with that pepper plant. So just remember that they grow slow and they just need their time to get going. All right, so let's recap what we just did here today, which is potting up or up potting. That simply means taking whatever cell your seedling was in, if it's a small 6 cell, you want to get a larger container and pot them up into a larger container. And you do this for multiple reasons. You want to give it ample amount of space for the roots to grow and not get root bound. You keep them in a small cell, they're going to get root bound down there at the bottom, and it's going to affect your plant in a negative way. So you want to allow it to have as much space as it needs until it's going to go into the ground. So up potting is definitely something you must do if you're going to start them in a smaller cell as a seed, and you do not want to skip that step. I promise you, your plants will love you if you up pot them and give them ample room for their roots to grow. So as always, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, give me a like and please subscribe. We'll have a lot more content coming out. Spring is finally here. It makes me very happy. And we will be out in the garden more, not just down here in the basement where I grow my seedlings. And it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great season. Happy growing, and I'll see you next time.